You do talk a little low, but so
yeah, I do. I know.
But so do I, so it should be fine.
I've had a very low voice since I got my tonsils out.
Yeah.
So I just like, it's really low.
So you have a low voice because you have your tonsils out?
Yeah, I got them out when I was in 7th grade, and like my voice just plummeted because sometimes when you get your tonsils out, it just makes your voice lower. And then I also hit puberty. So yeah, I went from like kind of a squeaky person to this. And I also like, I don't really yell that much because I don't see a point in yelling.
But, so just for fun.
Oh yeah.
Having your tonsils out and having your voice go down an octave is different from you projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I mumble too. I know I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But why would it make your voice softer? Because
I don't know. I don't know if it makes your voice softer. I know it makes it deeper.
Yeah, deeper part.
But I also learned that a long time ago. Like, I learned that in the early 90s, so I don't know if it's even true. Maybe they thought it was true and now it's not.
Yeah. So you read that somewhere and you assumed that it's true.
Yeah, I think like the doctor told my mom and then my mom told me. And my mom kind of makes stuff up sometimes, so.
Just kind of ran with that?
Yeah, I was like,
okay.
okay, hi.
What's your name?
My name is Andrea, and my friends call me Ange, A-N-G-E. And when I moved to Austin, I asked people to start calling me Ange because everybody mispronounces Andrea. And now they don't know what Ange is, so they call me Angie, which I just stopped caring about after that. I kind of gave up on it a long time ago. So when I grew up, like 90210 was really big, and there's a character named Andrea in it, and everyone called me Andrea. And that's not how you pronounce it.
You're Andrea, not Andrea.
Yeah, Andrea.
Is it
like,
the same? You're Andrea.
Yeah.
is all those spellings the same?
Yeah, it's spelled the same, like everywhere, I swear. It's a boy's name and it's a girl's name too. But
Andrea is a boy's name. Andrea is a boy's name too?
Andrea/Andrea is a boy's name also. It's actually classically a boy's name.
You were a big fan of Full House.
Yeah.
You were emulating which kid?
I think the oldest daughter, I really liked her. Yeah, DJ.
Yeah.
She had really big bangs. So, you know, the problem was like that show, I didn't watch it like when it aired, I watched it like in reruns. So I tried to like, I wanted to be like her because she was like really responsible and stuff. And then later I came to like really loathe TV shows like that, especially with canned humor, because I found it really fake and all the situations that they created were really fake. And life doesn't mimic those situations at all. Like everything's not okay, all wrapped up in a 23-minute episode. So I came to really loathe like all those 80s shows where everything was okay. Full House and Saved by the Bell. Like I hate Saved by the Bell. I actually can't stand it now.
Yeah, you went. I'm really sorry. I really want to hear this.
That's all right.
Because 80s TV shows
They're really like iconic. Like, you know, they create these like family situations that are completely false, and you know, they create like just really bizarre dynamics where, you know, in 23 minutes they present a conflict that's not realistic. They create a scenario that's easily wrapped up at the end, and then everything's okay, and then like everything's normal again, and there's no like lasting impression on any of the characters.
But sorry, I want to slow this down. So
Okay.
you wanted to emulate DJ from Full House at first.
Yeah.
When did you lose? When did you get dispirited by it, where you're like, this is all phony and kind of bullshit?
I don't know. I think like middle school was when I really started like not. Well, I think it was when I started realizing that it was all garbage. Like everything was really too perfect, and I think it was a way of TV translating what was going on in like social situations at the time. Because okay, so this is like the late 80s, right? And what was going on in the late 80s? Like there was a lot of economic downturn. I think like the what else was going on? Like there were a lot of reports about like families breaking up and divorce was a big thing, and you know.
How old were you?
So I was like 12.
Yeah. And then you suddenly became cynical, even though you liked these shows a lot at first.
Yeah, I got pretty cynical in middle school. And I don't think it was just like DJ, I think it was like all the attitudes of all the women in the shows that I would watch. But I would also watch like the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I loved Nick at Night, and I watched like Dobie Gillis and Mr. Ed,
So you decided to watch it in a more innocent time because you thought Saved by the Bell was also bullshit?
Yeah, Saved by the Bell is bullshit.
Something maybe going on in your life that you kind of didn't like these characters anymore, the little too perfect, little wrapped up perfect world or something?
Yeah, like middle school is weird because you go through puberty and everyone kind of starts splitting off into factions. So there's a very like determinate time where, you know, you're growing up and you're in grade school and everyone has to invite like the entire class to all the birthday parties. And then that rule doesn't apply anymore in middle school. Like you start getting like your friend circle and stuff like that. And I went to private school that it was a religious private school. So there were a lot of rich people there, and I didn't really grow up that rich. Like, you know, we were blue collar. Patterson's a very like industrial kind of town. So I knew the difference between the kids that I went to school with and the kind of background that I had. So, you know, middle school was sort of bizarre because everyone like really just split off into their own little social circles. And then I had like a couple of friends, but I don't know, I could just tell the difference between like economic statuses. You know, I knew I was in one group and I knew my fellow students were in another group. So I could see the differences.
But you went to the same school district. This is in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of like other side of the tracks kind of thing where rich?
No, not really. It was more like the whole town was sort of industrial, but the school I went to was in like another town, which was a lot more suburban and upscale. The private school had people from like different towns coming to it, but a lot of the kids were from expensive suburban towns. Like some of them were, I don't know, Montclair, and like I did live in Montclair, so there's a lot of like old money in northern New Jersey.
So were you like poor, or was everybody just a lot richer? Oh
no, I was poor and they were rich. Like I remember them getting stereos for their birthdays. They had like gymnastics lessons and like you know. But my parents like they tried like super hard. Like my dad was a beat cop and he like worked the streets of Patterson, which was very dangerous in like the late '80s because you had the drug crisis going on in Manhattan, and then Patterson was like it. So Patterson supported World War II efforts, but it never really came back after that. And then they converted a lot of their warehousing to paper mill, like paper production. But the town was always really broke. So my dad was a beat cop, and then my mom taught like swimming instruction at the YMCA. So yeah, and it was like me and my brothers. And you know, we had this like really old house that was built in, I think like the early 1900s. And my dad like spent the whole time we were there, my dad like fixed the whole house from basement to attic. So we lived in the attic at the beginning because it was kind of finished. And he just renovated like the entire house by himself on a beat cop salary.
You went to private school?
Yeah.
So you did pay for the private school?
Well, they got grants to go to private school because the Patterson school system's really awful, and it was really dangerous. Like that movie Stand By Me, or not Stand By Me. There was some movie that came out in the 80s that was all about like, you know, the Patterson high school system and how they like passed all the testing and all that stuff. But
what movie is it? Who's in it?
I wish I could remember the name of it.
Do you remember who's in it?
No, I can't. It wasn't Stand By Me, it was like some other movie came out in the 90s. But it took place at Eastside High.
Was it Morgan Freeman movie?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Just Lean on Me.
Yeah, that's it. Lean on Me, not Stand By Me. That's totally different.
What is that? That's you went to a school near there, or?
No, that
You
it's
said Patterson.
that. Yeah, that's the school took place in the town I grew up in.
Yeah.
So if you watch that movie, like that's pretty much what the school system, the public school system was like.
Okay.
So if I wanted free schooling, I could just go there. But if I wanted like actual good, safe school, then I'd have to go to private school.
You said BCOP a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what you're meaning, but you're making a distinction. Just curious.
Oh.
I mean, I feel like I know what it is, but why are you making such a distinction?
Well, because like, you know, he wasn't, like he didn't sit at a desk all day, you know, until like much later in his career. Like he was out on the streets, like in his cop car with his partners, like having, you know, Chinese food in the squad car for lunch and like driving around and like talking to people.
I guess you're making a distinction that he was on the streets most of the time.
Yeah.
Dealing with the crowd, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not a desk job. He wasn't a detective. Did he make detective?
He did, like, but later.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and then he got to retire on a detective salary, so that was good.
Because that's always the big promotion of the movies, making a detective.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to be a detective, so you don't have to work the streets anymore.
So I guess I'm feeling that you kind of resented the other kids, which made you
Oh, yeah.
from sitcoms.
Totally resented them, yes. Because, like, growing up and understanding economic disparities is, like, really hard for a 7th grader to know. Like, in 7th grade, like, you should be dealing with, like, you know, who your favorite musician is and hanging out with your friends and going to the mall and collecting like stickers and stuff. Well, at least that's what I did. I collected like Lisa Frank stickers. Like you shouldn't know about, you know, Allison in class got a stereo for her birthday and she has a pool in her backyard and only rich people in northern Jersey get pools in their backyards, like sliding glass doors. Like that's not a thing.
I hear you saying, but I don't know if, I feel like all kids kind of know. Cause
Do they?
Yeah, because when I was in high school, it wasn't like there was a super rich crowd, but I knew other kids had nicer clothes. And then when I would ask my mom for clothes, she would give me something on sale and it wouldn't be quite right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think most people are protected by that, unless they're just rich. Right?
Yeah, and they
Unless
don't.
they're at the top of the food chain.
Or maybe they do, like when they're rich, like they know and they don't care or something, or it's fine or whatever, but yeah.
If they're at the top of the food chain, they're not going to envy anybody else.
Mm.
It's like that Getty kid.
Yeah.
So you had a bit of a hard time. Did you get bullied?
Yeah, totally got bullied. I feel like it's a rite of passage at this point. Like, if you get bullied, like you more understand like the people around you and their insecurities or what fuels people or like what they're afraid of, and it makes you more aware of like your own feelings and it makes you more in touch with who you are. But yeah, I got bullied. What was his name? I can't remember his name. I think it was Dan, and he was the first person that actually like pointed out to me that I was a fat kid, and I wasn't like a hugely fat kid, but I wasn't like a skinny kid. And I think in the 80s, like if you weren't like a super skinny kid, then you were the fat kid, because the fat kids on TV were not that fat. So he like, and I remember I did this thing, we were standing in the hallway and I did this thing with my my thigh where I could like bunch up my leg fat with my hand. I was like, oh look, this is cool. And he was like, oh, you're fat. I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Was he your friend?
No. I think I was showing like the person sitting next to me and he was like nearby or something like that. I remember doing that very distinctly, like grabbing my thigh and being like, oh, I can like, you know, grab it. It's weird.
So you thought it was funny. Here comes this kid. He's watching and he's calling you fat when you're doing this particular bit.
Yeah, he did, and I think he made fun of me a couple times after that, and then I don't know. It just made me feel like really shitty. And then, like years later, he sent me this email saying that he was sorry and that he thought about it. And this was before Facebook even showed up. That he was like dealing with his own insecurities at the time. So I think he was like taking them out on me. And for someone to like be aware of their own insecurities, like their own like personal insecurities in 7th grade, and to know it's a problem and then to take it on someone else, like to project it on someone else and know about it is like pretty grown up, if you ask me, you know.
So there, I'm gonna imagine that there was a lot more than that one incident for him to find you or email you 6, 7, 8 years later. There was that one moment where he said, "Ew, you're fat."
Yeah.
And then did he constantly like make fun of you every day?
Not every day, but there were, I want to say like at least 3 or 4 times, because he showed up, I think I was in that school till 8th grade. I think he showed up in like 5th grade or maybe just 6th grade. And that's when like, you know, everyone just started like separating into their own groups. So I started feeling like lonely, you know, and then, you know, Dan shows up and it must have, I think it was like 3 or 4 times that he just made comments like that. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I just remember him like making those judgment faces, you know. I would sit there and I'd be like scratching my knee or something in class or reading a book under my desk during the lesson, and he would just give me these like, what are you doing? Like those looks, those like judgmental looks, and like, ugh.
So it was just, sometimes it was just a look.
Yeah, just a look, you know. Like, you know how you could tell when someone's a bully when like, you know, they're in a room, someone else walks in the room and they start laughing for like no reason. Like they're laughing to make the other person feel shitty. There's nothing funny going on. That person's a bully, and that's like who he was.
So how do you know he affected you so much?
Oh, I totally remember that. Yeah,
Well, no,
like.
how did he know?
Oh, how did he know?
Yeah, where he looked you up and apologized actually. Did you cry? Did you?
When he made fun of me, or?
Yeah, did you say something bad? Like,
No, I think like he could tell in my face, because I would like shut down. That sucked.
so how did that affect you? So even you probably weren't over it by 8th grade, and then
No.
you go into high school. It's even more kind of like that social Lord of the Flies thing. So how's high
Yeah.
school?
High school was bizarre because I had all of that crap going on from middle school, and we moved to a new town and I started a new school, but I was in school with my older brother, so it was more about like finding friends and finding my identity.
Your high school, you were navigating high school.
So I had all that garbage left over from middle school, and I go to high school, and this was, all right, so let me go back a little bit. My parents divorced in 7th grade when I was in middle school. So 7th grade was like crazy, right? So I had a bully, I had friends going off into like their own groups, and then I had like this loneliness, and then what else happened? Oh, and then, so my parents got divorced, and my brothers went to live with my dad, and I stayed with my mom. And then we left a year later to move to Fairlawn. And then my dad moved with my 2 brothers and my stepmom to her house. She also lived in Fairlawn, but like we were on like completely different sides. So basically what happened was, since my older brother was a year ahead of me, I ended up in the same high school as him. And everyone already knew him. He was in drama club. He was like super popular, well, not like super popular, but like everyone kind of knew him. His name was Josh. So, you know, I go to high school, and it's like, oh, you're Josh's little sister. And it's like, that was my name. My name was Josh's little sister. So I wasn't like Andrea or Ange or anything. I was Josh's little sister. So, you know, I go from like middle school, and then I go to high school for 2 years, and it's like, I'm, you know, trying to make my own friends and establish my own identity and stuff. And then my mom got remarried, and she moved to Teaneck. And then I switched high school. So like, you know, I finished high school in Teaneck, and that was great. It was great because I was Andrea. No one knew who the hell Josh was. Like, he was someone else. And I like made my own friends, and I met my best friend, Jessie, and I joined the LGBT club there because it's like a whole bunch of cool people. I started doing like art classes, And I joined the theater group, and we did like Raisin in the Sun, and I like managed all the props and the wardrobe for that, and that was cool. And like graduating from there was really awesome because I feel like I finally like came out of my shell, and I wasn't going to school with Josh anymore, but I was just doing my own thing. So I finally got like my own bunch of friends from that. So that was probably great.
You get kind of lucky.
Yeah, I really did. I mean,
did you say Josh went to that same school and then he graduated and then he was just gone, or did he go to a different school after the divorce?
Well, when they got divorced, he was in 8th grade and I was in 7th grade. So he finished at that school, and then he went to the Fairlawn High School. So he was like a year ahead of me. And then when I got to Fairlawn High School, he was already there, so everyone already knew him. But then for my junior year, so I only had like 1 year in the same high school as him. And then in junior year of high school, I went to a different town. So he stayed in that high school, and I went to a different high school.
Did you ever get, were you physically active, like exercise in high school?
I really wasn't. I wasn't like at all, and I totally regret it because like in middle school, my mom signed me up for soccer, and I played for like 2 months or something, and then I told her I didn't want to do it anymore, and she said, "Okay, no problem," and that was it. And after that, I didn't do any activities. I think she sent me to summer camp for 2 summers. But I wasn't really active there either. I didn't do any sports there. Like they didn't like push you to do sports. They just kind of like had programming, but you did your own thing. So I mostly did like arts and I don't know, like the rock wall or something.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, right? Because I remember being a brat and wanting to quit stuff. My parents would let me. And then there's that balance of those parents that don't let their kids quit, and then they kind of messes them up. But sometimes I'm like, why didn't they kind of make me keep going or something like that?
Yeah, and I just really wish that like my mom, sat me down and asked me why I wanted to quit soccer, or is there another sport that I wanted to do, or something, like anything, like go make me run around a field somewhere, like let's go see if I like band, like can I go learn to play the violin, like what else can I do? Like can I get on a professional jump rope team, like let's go skating. So there's like a million things I could have done. And then it was like soccer, and that was it. So when I got to the second high school for 2 years, I didn't do like any sports at all. And then I fell in with like the more artistic crowd. And of course, all we did was make fun of like the cheerleaders, who were actually really nice people. And they weren't like bitchy or anything. It wasn't like in the movies. So yeah, I didn't do any sports. I didn't work out. I think we had gym, and the gym teacher put on Taebo tapes, so we just did Taebo during class.
Your high school did Taebo at the gym?
Yeah, we did Taebo.
What year is this?
97, 98 on VHS. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a bit younger than me. The whole Full House thing seemed to be. You must have watched it on reruns.
Yeah, it was reruns.
Yeah,
so, and like I know it was reruns because like, and that's why it's so weird that I would like Full House and Saved by the Bell, because they were all reruns, so they were outdated like crazy, right? So I was following like these icons on TV that were outdated. So already I have this image of like who I should be, but it's completely wrong.
It's
so
corny because it's more 80s. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's so 80s, and like I like had the bangs and the big shirts with the little stretch pants.
You're not getting yourself
totally wrong.
Outdated. What was the sitcom of the times? Seinfeld? But right.
See,
right?
but that was for adults. Yeah, like.
Oh, that was for adults. I see.
That's the thing. Like, I was too young to watch Seinfeld. Like, I don't think there are any sitcoms for kids, or maybe there were, and I didn't see them.
Sitcoms you're referring to, they really weren't for kids. They were prime time.
Yeah.
TGI Friday, like Family Matters.
So I watched Family Matters.
But those were for adults.
I know.
Kids, right?
No, I know. Yeah.
Those for kids, but yeah.
Yeah.
But you thought the current sitcoms of the time were way too adult for kids. They had no kids.
They were, yeah. Well, they were like boring for adults.
Friends was another one. No
I
kids in them.
hated Friends so much. I hated Friends. I really hate laugh tracks. I find them to be really condescending, and I know the history of laugh tracks, and it's basically like a marketing scheme to get people more involved in the show.
Sometimes it's a live studio audience, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I find that like, if you're telling me when to laugh, then the joke is not funny. You're just prompting me like I'm a robot.
Wait a minute, that's how the 80s comedies were that you used to like.
Yeah.
With Hoop and Holler, somebody make an entrance.
Yep.
When he'd say "Have mercy" and all his catchphrases.
Oh my God.
Oh, I guess you didn't like him anymore. You're right. But yeah, those are all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even like Dobie Gillis had laugh tracks, you know, and I love the Dick Van Dyke Show. I thought that was like the funniest thing ever. And I watched like Alfred Hitchcock Presents when I was like 10. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's weird. I watched it too. But like I said, I'm a little bit older. But that's cool. You found. Do you ever watch Twilight Zone?
Yeah, I watched Twilight Zone. It scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
All the Stephen King's Creep Show. I watched that when I was a kid. It scared the hell out of me. I can't like.
Creep Show, the movie.
I think he did like a mini series of Creep Show, where he did a couple episodes.
There was also Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, I totally watched that. Oh my God, I love that show. It was great.
Tell me about, if you want to, when your parents got divorced. I'm just curious.
Sure.
You're a kid. You're in middle school.
Yeah.
They just like sit you down. Or what was it?
Yeah, my mom made God, what do we have? I think we had like steak for dinner that night. I don't know why. We had steak or maybe we had something else. We were just at the table and she was like, "Hey, we're getting divorced," and then like Josh cried, and then.
Can you break that slow down for me? You're having steak. It's somebody's favorite. It's like a nice dinner. That's why you remember it was steak.
No, I just remember her going through a phase where she just made steak and potatoes like a whole bunch. Yeah, I don't know if that was like before or after they got divorced. I just remember like.
Was your dad still living in the house?
After?
No, before the announcement.
Oh yeah, he was.
But are they sitting you down together?
Was he there?
Maybe not.
I don't remember if he was there. I just remember like the three of us were there, like my two brothers and I around the table.
Steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
Just steak and potatoes?
Probably steak and potatoes. It might have been something else. I'm not sure.
Was there a second side dish that she was?
I don't remember. I don't know.
It's like mashed potatoes, or scallop, or different potatoes.
She always made mashed potatoes. I don't know.
What kind of meat was it? Do you remember?
Steak, you mean?
You do know there's different kinds of meat.
I don't know anything about steak.
Really?
I know there's ground steak, and then there's steak shaped like this.
You know there's.
And there's round steak.
There's like ribeye, tenderloin, but maybe she turned you off.
I don't know.
It's funny that you brought that up.
It was very steaky. I remember it was steak.
So she sat down and she said, we're getting divorced. She put it that bluntly? Moms and daddy sometimes grow apart?
She said, "Your father and I are getting divorced." And she was like choked up about it. Yeah.
So you had little reaction, your brother started bawling?
Yeah, Josh cried, David cried, I cried.
At the table?
Yeah, at the table, yeah. I mean, when you tell three kids, oh, their parents are getting divorced, like they're gonna break out in tears, you know.
What were their problems, if you had to say? No matter.
Oh my God. I don't know if I could say accurately, but knowing my mom, codependency is a thing with her, and that's why I stayed with her to be. And I ended up like totally in a codependent relationship with her, where I was like a caretaker and making sure that everything was okay and making sure that like the house was still operating and stuff like that. Even though she was there and she was like running the house and paying the bills and stuff, but I felt like I needed to be there to be like the mature adult in the house. You know, that was like my role after they got divorced. So yeah, I would say like codependency was probably part of it. There's probably other stuff, other reasons why they got divorced, but I don't know what they are. I think that's between the two of them.
Are you close with both of them now?
Yeah. I'm closer with my dad than I am with my mom. So after they got divorced, I stayed with my mom, and then I had like visitation with my dad, and then that went on through high school to junior year, and then I stopped seeing him as much because I would go over to his house, and there wasn't really much to do. Like, we didn't interact with each other. You know, we didn't like talk to each other, spend time together. I'd be like downstairs in the basement watching TV, and he'd be like doing something else. So it's been like whole weekends that I wouldn't even see him, but he'd be there, you know. So I just figured, well, we're not really spending time together, I might as well not go. And there were like, oh God, there were like 10 years or something after that where we just really didn't talk to each other. And then if I can like skip ahead after that, and then I moved to New York, and I had like, you know, adult life stuff and graduated college and shit like that. And I started seeing a therapist, and after like the first meeting, he was like, you know, I think you should talk to your mom and you should talk to your dad. So I was taking the bus back home from the therapist's office, and I was walking through Columbus Circle in Manhattan, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call my dad right now, and I'm gonna fix this whole thing. Because like, I'm the kind of person where if I set my mind to do something, I'm gonna do it like right now. It's gonna happen right now. I'm not gonna put it off, I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna like do it and get it over with so I can like move on. So I sat down, and it was nighttime, and I sat on the fountain, and I called him on my like little flip phone, and I was like, hey Dad, and we like mashed it out for like an hour and a half.
You said, hey Dad, what?
Oh, I said like, oh God, I can't remember what I said to him. I think like, I more or less said like I want to have a relationship with you, and you know, it sucks that we haven't talked in like 2 years, and blah 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 blah. So we like hashed it out. We talked about like everything, and I was in, and I remember sitting on the fountain, and like, there's like always random video crews that are in Manhattan, like filming movies and stuff. So I think someone thought that I was in a movie being filmed because there was someone standing nearby videoing the fountain. So there was like 2 people watching me while I was on my phone, like crying into the sleeve of like my jacket, and like my sleeve was like full of like tears, you know. And there's like 2 people watching me on the phone. It's like the most awkward situation I've ever been in.
They didn't tape you, did
No, they weren't actually taping me, no.
And then what'd your dad say?
Oh, he like was sitting at his own kitchen table, like probably also crying, and like I honestly don't remember like the specifics of the conversation, but I think it was more about like, you know, getting everything out on the table and just like being honest and like building a new relationship as adults. And I think that's great because like, I feel like if you grow up with your parents and there's no break in between, like you're always kind of like their kid, you know, like they don't become your friend. And I feel like that break made my dad my friend instead of like my dad, so.
Was there a reason you guys just stopped talking, just kind of maybe grew apart, and not grew apart, but maybe just had talking a lot and just kind of built like this weird chasm or bridge where you just had talking a lot, or was there some sort of resentment between either of them?
No, not resentment, no. I think it was more like me living with my mom and her being remarried and having like a new situation for me to be in. Like I needed to manage that instead of like also managing like having a relationship with my dad, you know? Because like my mom married someone who's religious, so I was like 16, right? And then my mom married someone who's religious, and then he has a son, and they go to services every weekend, and it's like this whole new world where I have to deal with religion in the house now, which is like a very intense religion. And there's always like rules and stuff. So I had to manage that. And then it just seemed like it was a lot of work to deal with my dad and then deal with a new family too.
Did your mom suddenly become real religious too?
Yeah.
Or she just kind of did it to just, I don't know, have something in common and be on the same page? Or she really, really get into it, go all in?
Well, I think she wanted to be religious because of like the community aspect to it, because it gives you answers to everything, like religion does. And this is why I have an attitude, like I have a very certain attitude towards religion. Like religion will give you the answer to questions that we shouldn't have the answers to. Like what happens after you die, what happens before you're born, what happens to all your relatives after they die, like who's in charge, like what is my plan for life, all that stuff. These are all answers that we shouldn't know. They're not, like we just know. It's not up to us. It's not to anybody.
So, what kind of religion is she?
She's Jewish, so she's Orthodox Jewish now.
She didn't become more Jewish. She just
Oh no,
started practicing more. You guys are
Yeah.
already Jewish.
Yeah, so she
Picked
yes.
the
So she's Jewish, my dad's Jewish, my entire family is Jewish. I don't consider myself Jewish. I consider myself atheist, actually. And my husband is agnostic. And I never considered myself Jewish at all. I really didn't.
Why do you think, not that I'm religious, and not to get weird on you,
That's
but
all
I'm
right.
just curious. I haven't heard anybody say, so this is kind of stupid. So I was watching Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy yesterday,
Yeah.
and one of the things they built this supercomputer called Deep Thought because they wanted to know the answers to life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I think I've heard somebody say you're not supposed to know. How do you know you're not supposed to know? Or why do you think that? I'm very curious about that point of view. That's
Because
the ultimate question, right?
yeah, well, the ultimate answer is 42.
42, right?
Yeah.
So why not ask the question? Why not know? Because if you know, you don't play the universe right, or tell me more. I have no idea.
Because I feel like there's stuff that we're never gonna know. You know, like you can't possibly know what happens to you after you die. Like how do you? Well, technically, you know, your body decomposes, your nutrients are returned back to the ground. Cool, I know that.
Oh, wait.
That's obvious.
Well, see, but if you go from that point of view, there is no answer. There isn't a secret, right? It's
Yeah,
just
there's just nothing. There's like
existence.
you get your time now, and that's it. And that's what I believe. Like as an atheist, I believe that you have your time right now. You have today. You have tomorrow. You had last week. You probably have till you're like 95, depending on how long your life expectancy is, and that's it.
So
You're done.
I'm going to be facetious here, but even as an atheist, let's say we're put on this planet by aliens, that's still, you can still be atheist, and that'd be true, right?
If you were put on this planet by aliens,
Kind of like the Scientology.
like would you say that the aliens created your the organisms you evolved from? Because then they'd be your creator, but that's
Right.
still not a faith-based thing unless
Right,
you're
so
worshiping the
it's
aliens.
still okay for atheism, right? If we were put on this planet by, like aliens planted us.
Aliens planted us?
So, like I said, we're kind of silly, but for Scientology, you know, aliens
Oh,
put us on this planet.
yeah, Scientologists are crazy.
Anyway, I'm
They need something to do with their lives.
okay. So did you go to college?
Yeah, so I went to, so because I was still in taking care of mom mode and she didn't really have any college money for me, I went to community college in New Jersey and I did my associates. And the good thing, okay, I'm totally a proponent of community colleges. I think tech schools are great. I think trade schools are awesome because when you start school, like you're gonna have to get all of that general education bullshit out of the way. Like you're gonna have to do Bio 101, you're gonna have to do like a phys ed class, like all that stupid stuff. And you're paying out the nose for that. So the easiest thing for you to do is to go to community college, get your associate's degree, do all of that general education boring shit when you can for cheap, and then transfer it into your bachelor's. So then you have a degree, you have half your work done at like a fraction of the cost, and then you can go to like the school you actually want to go to and finish off your education.
What is your associate and your bachelor's in?
My associate's is in applied science, which is, it sounds like information science, but it's actually like graphic design. So it's more like communication arts. And my bachelor's is in, also in communication arts in graphic design.
What is communication arts?
So communication arts is, it's printmaking or print design, it's graphic design, it's advertising, it's marketing, it's...
Why is it called applied science?
I don't know. It's the applied science, like it didn't really make any sense. But the best stuff I took in that course was, or in that school, I took a lot of like graphic design portfolio classes, which were great because when you do an associate's degree, it like preps you for a professional career. Like you get out of school, you can go get a job, you have a whole like printed portfolio like waiting to go.
What was the graphic design atmosphere like when you were going to school? Was that still pen to paper, or was it more still, is it computers like it is now? What was it like back then?
So it was Apple G3 time.
Okay.
It was before the colorful iMacs came out. My bachelor's was when the colorful iMacs and the G4s came out. So it was the crossover between typography as like a manual art versus just doing everything in like an Adobe software, or like Quark Express was big at the time. So I initially learned print layout on Quark, which doesn't even exist anymore. No one uses Quark Express. And then I ended up going into all the Adobe stuff later on.
Is that what you do now?
No, it's not what I do now.
What do you do now?
I'm a software engineer right now. So when I started college, I got my first job as a web developer, and this is in 1999, and I had 2 days from my high school graduation to just blow off steam. And then I went to work for corporate America, like right away. And I was a web developer, and I had that job until the .com bust in 2002, when my company went out of business because it was...
It's out of business, I'm quite certain.
They were, what are they called? Alliance Funding. Oh, God.
It sounds like it's still...
It might sound familiar. So they were called Alliance Funding. They were a mortgage firm and a mortgage banking money management firm. And they were owned by Superior Bank, and they went out of business. And they shut down everything. I think they only kept like their mainstream operations in Illinois. And so that happened in 2002 during the .com bust. And then I went to work for, God, who did I work for after that? Oh, and then I got a job working for my college where I was doing my bachelor's, where I worked on the website there, and I went to school in northern Jersey. So I went to undergrad in Jersey, and then I finished my undergrad in Jersey. So I basically did undergrad the whole time in Jersey.
So I hear your advice about community college and they go to school, but some people like that college experience. I know it could be a big waste of money, but
it's valuable. No, it totally is. And after I finished my associates and I went to get my bachelor's, I stayed at the dorms, even though it was 12 miles away from the house that my parents lived in.
So tell me about your college life. What kind of person are you? Did you party a lot? Did you get into stuff?
I did not party at all. No, I was working full time. I was already a grown up. Like, I feel like I've been a grown up since my parents' divorce. Like, I grew up real fast.
They didn't try to knock on your door and say, hey.
Yeah, they did a couple times. Like, I remember I went to one party in the nearby apartments, but I didn't really party that much. Most of the people I hung out with were in the sci-fi club, and that's where I met my next best friend, Katie. Hi, Katie. So I met her in sci-fi club, and I just hung out with like the sci-fi geeks the whole time. And because I was like working full time and just paying my own way through school, it really didn't make sense for me to party. And I also don't really like to party that much.
You drink?
Not really. Not really.
What do the sci-fi club do? Is it cosplay? Or no.
Well, I mean, they celebrated cosplay too. They held 24-hour comic book lockdowns where you could make a comic in 24 hours.
Did you make a comic?
No, I never went to that one. But they would do like film screenings, and they would have meetups and stuff, or they would go to Comic-Con together, or, you know, one of them made a web comic. This guy, Matt, did like a great web comic.
So what did you didn't
what did I do?
Create anything nerdy?
I made a lot of art in college.
Yeah. Where is it? Is it in digital? Can we see some of that?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So I did, when I worked on my associates, we took a lot of studio classes, so I did a lot of charcoal drawings, and I was a big fan of life drawing, like love life drawing, love drawing women. I feel like women's bodies are like way more interesting than men's bodies, no offense. And then when I got to Ramapo, I did more studio art classes, and I did a lot of like digital art stuff. So yeah, I still have a lot of regular art. Like I still have all my portfolio stuff from college and all my drawings and everything.
Is it on the website?
Yeah. I'll give it to you afterwards.
You want to tell everybody?
Well, it's hard to say it. If I say it, like no one's really gonna hear it.
Can you spell it?
Chunchmeow.com, chunchmeow.com.
What is that word?
It is a nonsense word. It's a word that doesn't make any sense, and it's a word that a friend of mine from Sleepaway Camp made up because I don't know where she got it from. But I kept the word for the longest time because I wanted Google to only find me when it searched for that word, and that still happens. So I bought the domain name, and then I also bought AndreaKaplan.com, so it's on there too. Like one redirects to the other.
What did that other word mean?
Chunchmeow?
Chunchmeow.
It doesn't mean anything. It's
What does it refer to?
nothing.
Is it an expression? Oh, chunchmeow.
No, it's
Is it you?
it's
Is it a
a
feeling, a thought? It's something.
it's like a connector word or an exclamation word, like the word Smurfs, like oh it's so Smurfy or whatever. So you say like oh it's so chunchy, but honestly I never really use it in a sentence unless people ask me.
So the Smurf word
Yeah,
takes on meaning as it in its context, right?
yeah, it does.
So maybe this one does too.
Yeah, I mean you could say like
When you just
that's-
said it just now, it seemed like a negative thing. I'm so chunchy right now.
you're so chunchy.
Chunchy?
Well, you could describe like a peanut as being chunchy.
Is that a good thing?
Well, yeah.
Could it be a bad thing too?
Well, sure. Like, oh, chunch, I lost my underwear today. You know, oh, that sucks.
See, it did have
Whatever. Well, yeah. I mean, the meaning changes with like I guess the inflection or the attitude, like whatever you want. Yeah, it's a complicated
You
word.
can't just write two sentences of a definition.
Yeah, you just can't.
So I think you were saying you discovered, so you didn't exercise much in college
Yeah.
as well.
So I didn't exercise in college. I took up skating, like artistic roller skating, which is kind of like figure skating on quads. I took that up and that was fun, and I learned how to do like some jumps and stuff.
Well, slow down on that. It's called what? Artistic
Yeah,
roller skating
it's-
on quads?
So it's called artistic roller skating, and it's really incredible to watch these kids do it. Like they're, these nimble little 16-year-olds, and they have like the classic quad skates, and they do these incredible moves, like regular ice skating moves, but they'll do it on skates, and it'll be on like a regular gym floor. And so I thought it was great, and I love skating. Like I used to rollerblade. I rollerbladed when I was a kid. I rollerbladed when I was in my early 20s, and then I started bringing my rollerblades to the roller rink. And then I switched over to quads, and that was fun. And I still have my quad, so I can still skate.
Not that I'm very good, but I brought the rollerblades to a skating rink once, but it's not that fun. It's more fun to go old school with the quad.
Yeah, it is, and the balance is different too. Like when you're on quads, you're actually using your quad muscles, which is weird because when you're on rollerblades, like it's more difficult. Like you're trying to balance more and keep them like centered as opposed to like just enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I kind of see what you mean. Like I think when I was on rollerblades, I could kind of feel it more in my back, in the posterior chain, but on the quads, I would kind of lean forward a little bit.
Yeah.
But that sounds super hard, artistic roller skating. So you were
Yeah, I was okay. Like I wasn't amazing or anything. I got to this one point where I could do a jump, like I could skate forward and then jump on one foot and then and land on the other, and I got that down, and that was really cool. And I did that for a while. No, there's no videos or no pictures.
Okay, could you like spin like an ice skater? Like,
No, I could never do a spin. I could do, can't remember what any of the moves are called, but where you skate on one foot with one foot extended out in front, and you just go forward like you're going through a pipe or
that looks like a
something.
pistol.
Yeah, so I could do that for a while, and then I could skate on one leg. I could skate like in a T shape on one leg, where your back foot is like all the way back, and then you're like really fancy. Yeah, I could do that one. I know I could do that one.
Do people get annoyed if you do those tricks in a regular roller skating rink?
Nah. So I went to a roller rink in Florida, and I started doing that. And then by the end of the night, I could see other ladies trying to do it.
The one with your foot in front, or which one?
Just the one where you're like leaning forward and one leg is sticking straight back out, and you know you have your arms up like you're sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do that in ice skating now. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. What were we talking about?
We were talking about not being too active.
Oh, then you saw. Okay, so you found that somehow.
Right.
Yeah. And then
So,
what else were you doing?
so I was doing skating, and I think I was like going to the gym and I don't know, like walking on the treadmill and doing some weights, you know, a little dumbbell, like whatever. But I never did, like, it's so obvious to me I was not living up to my potential, like at all athletically. So obvious to me because, you know, I'll go to the gym and I'll do like, you know, the leg machine for a little bit and I'll go home and, you know, I never tried that hard because I didn't have like a direction to go. And I thought it was more about just like going to the gym 3 times a week and staying active and eating your vegetables and whatever. But I have, like looking back, I obviously had no idea what the hell I was doing. Like
So
none.
you felt a pull that you needed to do more. You seemed like you weren't reaching any type of athletic potential. So
Yeah.
So okay. So then what?
So there was, and this was when I was living in Manhattan, there was an annual 5K that took place in a park near where I lived. And I wanted to sign up for it 1 year, but I missed registration because they never publicized it, and it pissed me off that I missed it 1 year. And then I was thinking to myself, oh, I'll just remember to do it next year. Missed it again. So I missed it because it's so early in the year, you just tend to forget about it. So I decided I was just gonna go put my sneakers on and run the course. I was just gonna do it anyway. Like, I gotta do something, right?
Why were you focused on this 5K?
Yeah, it was just a 5K.
Just 5K. So you had it, you saw it, you were like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Came and went, and then you're like, I'm screwed. I'm gonna do it anyway. I don't need a ceremony or whatever festival.
Oh no, it was more like I had some friends in the neighborhood that had done it, and I saw photos of them at the event, and like it reminded me that I missed it again the next year because I saw photos again. So I think I was just so frustrated because I missed it like again. You know what I mean? Like I could have sworn I would have like signed up for it if I had just heard about it, but I didn't, and I missed it, and I was pissed off. And I'm like, I could do that. I knew I could do that. Excuse me. So.
Are you warming up still?
No, I'm still really fucking cold, but it's all right. Is it like you working?
It's working.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh, hello, best friend.
cold.
I know. I swear like the temperature's dropping today.
It's dropping.
It is, right?
This place is bad.
I can still feel my like voice shaking.
I feel like there's a breeze.
Okay, anyway.
So you're like, I'm gonna run this course.
Right, I'm gonna put a sweater on and I'm gonna run this course, and like the loop was right by where I lived. It was ridiculous. Like I really had no excuse. Like I partially wanted to do it because I could literally walk outside of my door, walk like 3 blocks to the start line, and then run the course and come home. That's how close it was. So I ran it, and it was really hard because I think I ran it and then I had to take a couple breaks along the way because I'd never really ran before. Like I never ran outside. I never ran fast or slow. I had no idea what I was doing. So I ran it, and then I took a couple of breaks, and then when I would stop, I just like kind of hopped in place to keep going, because I always saw people like out running when they're at stoplights. They like run in place.
Go. They tell the cars to go, and
Yeah.
they bounce it up and down.
Like they're just, I don't know why they do that. And like now I know it's like bullshit. Like like if you're trying to cross the street and you're running, just stand still. It's fine.
There's a whole Saturday Night Live thing where I think it's Chris Kattan, like a car would come up and he'd be like, go, and he'd just keep bouncing up and down.
Yeah,
but he'd do it like 10 cars in a row. It's like, go on.
Yeah, exactly. And I went home, and I told my friend Peter, who was a runner, about it. He was like, good job. I'm like, yeah. And then like I didn't run at all after that.
Well, how long did it take you? This is about 2.5 miles or 2 and something miles? Or?
I think it was 3 miles. It probably took me like an hour.
You don't know.
Because I didn't time it. Or I did time it, and I used I used Map My Run, which I had to eventually stop using because I switched phones and they lost all my data. So I hate Map My Run. I don't use them anymore for a very specific reason.
Exist, right?
Yeah, they still exist. I still think they're garbage. So
Strava?
I use Runkeeper now. I've been dancing around Strava. But anyway, yeah, and then I didn't run after that. And I talked to my friend Peter about it, who ran a lot. He lived in Brooklyn, and he ran through Prospect Park, and he was like this like super lean guy and really tall, and he like loved to run. He could run for miles, and he was like super fast. And I still in my mind had this idea that runners were really skinny and super fast, like they're a bunch of gazelles. You watch the gazelles like finish the New York City Marathon, and I was like, oh my God, I'll never be that. And it's funny because I hear people say that nowadays, and I'm like, you're so wrong. You could be a runner. Anyone can do it. So, and then I got like a new boss at the job that I had. And he picked up running, and he told me about a guy named John Bingham, who is known as the Penguin. And I think he's called the Penguin because he runs like how a penguin runs, like he kind of like waddles or something. And I read his book, and his book, the whole thing about John Bingham is that he's all about like, the idea is that you finish. It's not really about how fast you are or how efficient you are or whatever. It's about like just getting to the end and like having a good experience and like getting a personal benefit out of it. So my boss recommended this John Bingham book, and when my boss said, well, I'm going to do the Brooklyn Half Marathon coming up in 6 months, like, you should do it too. So he was like trying to get me into it, and I was kind of like intimidated by him because he was my boss. And then I was also like, yeah, I could probably do that. Like, how far is that? I don't know, 13 miles. I could probably do that. Like, I have enough time. Sure. So, and I didn't like look up training programs. I didn't know anything about correct shoes, hydration, food. I didn't know what gels were, like none of that stuff. And when you live in Manhattan and you run, you hit intersections when you run. Or you could run down the side, which is a park, but it's also kind of dangerous running through a park in Manhattan when you're a female. Just be careful.
I thought Giuliani cleaned all that stuff up. Did you know?
Is it what?
I thought Giuliani cleaned all that stuff up.
Oh, no. Phew. No way, no. This is Bloomberg.
The whole stereotype of New York growing up was horrible, right? But then it got better, and Times Square became more of a tourist area.
Oh no, yeah, it's so much better now than it was. Oh my God. Oh yeah. Like there's a fucking Chili's in Times Square. It's fine.
And then,
it's totally safe.
Central Park used to get mugged all the time.
Yeah.
That's better now, too.
Well, you still can get mugged in the parks.
Maybe not as bad.
Just don't go in the parks after dark. Just don't do it. Like, I mean, it's totally safe now. Like, it really is, but it's still New York City, Put your wallet in your front pocket. Just watch. Just look around. And watch who's around you. But so anyway, so like I totally made up this thing where I was like, oh, maybe I could just run 2 times a week, and I'll just run down to like 110th Street. And I probably ran like a total of like 12 miles a week or something like that, which was like nothing. And it was all downhill because I lived in northern Manhattan. And when you live in northern Manhattan, like it's pretty much just downhill the whole time. So I ran downhill. I ran barely at all, and I didn't know shit about shoes or nothing. So I get to, I think the most I ran was like 9 miles one day. So I get to the race and I'm like dying. Like it was the...
Did you say it's Boston half marathon?
Brooklyn half marathon, yeah.
So it's race day.
So it's race day,
Yeah.
and I wore like a blue cotton shirt, and I had, you know, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And because I didn't even know what my time was, I signed up for the corral that was like a 10-minute per mile time. I was totally not, by the way. No, I'm not that fast. No, forget it. So I'm standing there, and there's all these like really skinny, beautiful gazelles around me, you know, and they all have like team shirts on and stuff. And it's obvious I'm in the wrong corral. I should be like in the back. I probably averaged like a 13.5-minute mile when I was first running. So I got to, I think I got to like mile 5, and I just, like the first half was in a park, and then the second half was down a highway, and then you ended in like Coney Island or something. So I get all the way down to the end of the park, and it's like 6 miles, right? I'm like crying at this point, like crying because like I didn't know when the hell I was going to get out of that park. I felt like I was being tortured in that park. And then I finally get out of the park, and I'm so relieved that I got out of the park. And then I get down the highway, and mile 9 happens, and I just wanted to die. And then I finally finished, and I think it took me 3 hours and 26 minutes or something like that. And I'm pretty sure I saw a guy on crutches going faster than me, by the way. I'm pretty sure there was a guy on crutches on there.
Yeah, I've dabbled in running. Not very good, but I have done like a half marathon. I've been easily passed up or lapped by people that are pushing baby strollers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or just like a guy walking really fast,
Right.
He's gonna go faster than you. Yeah, I mean, he's not doing that for 16 goddamn miles, but you are.
There's a guy, they have pacers, and they're like carrying a flag or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're just killing it.
Yeah, the pacers are really fast too. So I finished, and I got my medal, which I brought with me. This is my little medal from 2013. And it's the first medal I ever got for anything. I did do swim team when I was a kid, but I feel like I got participation trophies, you know? So I got that, and my body hurt for like 2 weeks after that. Like my hips hurt, my shins hurt, everything hurt. Like my feet hurt, like my shoulders hurt because I was like really tight in the shoulders. I was like hunched over, and I was running like. So I finished, and like I was really glad that I did it, but I didn't run again until I left New York, and then I went to LA. So there must have been like a full year until I ran again.
Why go from New York to LA?
So we got priced out of Manhattan.
Why did you move to Manhattan? Why was that your decision to go from Jersey to go? Did you go to school in Manhattan?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
And
okay. Why live in Manhattan?
Okay, so when you're from northern New Jersey, like you go into Manhattan all the time. And when I learned to drive and I got my driver's license, I would just drive across the George Washington Bridge, and I would just go to Manhattan. I would drive up and down Broadway until, yeah, because it's fun. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And like, it was, when I moved to Manhattan, it was expensive, but it was kind of at the time where like it wasn't really expensive because it was right after 9/11. Well, it was a couple years after 9/11. So most people were actually leaving Manhattan after 9/11. So I don't know, I guess like people weren't really, it was like this weird like gap, you know, because right now people are like in droves going into the city. So it was at this time where there was like kind of a lull. So I found a studio apartment that was $810 a month, and I lived on the Upper West Side, and it was really nice. Like, it was a safe neighborhood. You know, it's right across the street from this like gorgeous condo complex and everything, and like a block away from the park. And then I moved to another place north of that, and I paid, I think I paid like $920 a month, and I was there for a couple of years until it hit like $1175, and then I moved in with my boyfriend, who is now my husband, and he paid $980 a month for a one bedroom, and then when we left, it was like $1210 or something.
So why go to LA?
So we wanted to go to San Francisco, but the prices were just like
Why California?
unbearable. Well, okay.
High profile city like that.
So what? So my husband is a sound designer slash. He's a composer for video games. So it was more about like the lack of work in Manhattan and the places that we could go where we could both get jobs. So we needed somewhere that was like a tech startup kind of oriented, because Manhattan's not really like that. But we needed somewhere where like he could get work too. So he'd been going to LA a whole bunch for like music conferences and like GDC and stuff like that that's out there. And, you know, LA had Santa Monica, which is very tech startup heavy. And then San Francisco's like San Francisco. So, and we needed like a city. Like, I wanted to go to a city. I'm a city person. Like, I've always been a city person. So we looked at San Francisco, and it was just like unbearably expensive and like suffocating with homeless problem. Like, the homeless people were really aggressive in San Francisco, so it was very off-putting. In New York, they're very like, not chill, but if you ignore them, they don't bother you. Right. That's how it is in New York, and I'm good with that. I could deal with that. In San Francisco, they fucking like get in your face, and they take stuff out of your hand, or they don't give a shit. Yeah, they'll fucking like walk into a restaurant, take stuff off the table, like. They're so aggressive in San Francisco. It's crazy. Like, they'll call you out on the street, and I just
know people that sell timeshares that are really aggressive and annoying. I didn't know homeless people.
Yeah, the homeless people in San Francisco are like in your face. So that was off-putting. The cost of renting was off-putting.
How do other people deal with aggressive homeless people?
I don't know, because the way that I know. I think they don't even pay attention to them. I think rich people don't look at them, because like that, so that disparity definitely exists in New York, where there's like super rich condo complex with a homeless person sleeping on the doorstep. But I think like homeless people are okay with being ignored because they understand like that's what you do in New York. If you don't want to like accept someone's interaction, you just ignore them. Or you have your headphones in, and that's like the universal language for leave me the fuck alone. In San Francisco, it's like a whole other story. So it just, between the cost and how, and like just the lack of social services in San Francisco, like it just wasn't gonna work. So we moved to LA as kind of our backup. And LA just really wasn't what we wanted it to be. I really didn't like living in Los Angeles. I liked the job that I had, and I still work for the same company that I work for in LA. But other than that, like I really liked my coworkers. My boss was great. The company was good. Like they had a lot of good work. I learned a lot working there. But it was really hard to make friends. I feel like people are really guarded in LA. Like they have like a brick wall. You know, they have their friends that they've trusted since grade school, and they don't want outsiders or anything. So between that and spending like 2.5 hours a day in a car, like I could not do it.
I never get your running story.
So
you didn't run again until LA, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think to make up for the loneliness I had in LA and the lack of friends, I took up running, and I found this husband and wife team, and they put on races like every weekend along Santa Monica Beach. And they were very like chill races, you know, like they just had like little cones for a turnaround point. So I went and I did like a bunch of 10Ks there, and I would do, not every weekend, but I would do them like once a month.
What did they do? They hosted a bunch of 10Ks all the time?
Yeah, they would do like different distances in one event. So from the start line to a specific turnaround, and then back was a 5K, and then you go a little further, and that's a 10K.
Were they trainers? This is a business?
No, it was just a business. It was like a husband and wife team, and they just put on events, and they would just
like
get,
a running group, kind of
yeah.
thing.
And they were great. They were called A Better World Running, and every year they would do drives for like shoe sneaker donations and stuff like that. So, you know, they were really nice about it, and it was very minimal. You know, they had like little stations like set up with like a table and snacks on it. So they would give us all snacks, and we would get like little medals, and it was just really nice. And and then they would have like, you know, and they would stay there if they had a marathon that day. They would just wait for the people to finish. So they did them along the beach, and then they went to a park, and they would do it along the trail. And that park was great because like there weren't a lot of hills, but there were like gophers like in the grass. So sometimes you would see like a little mound with like a gopher pop up while you were like running through the park. So that was cool. And I did like a bunch of those. So that was 2014. I did a bunch, and I finally made a New Year's resolution. It was like the first time I've ever done that, because I don't believe them. I think they're bullshit. Like, you either fucking change your life and do it, or, you know, you make a New Year's resolution that you're never going to keep. Like,
sometimes
what
the
is it?
timing just works.
Yeah, I mean,
Like if you had a goal, like
like now's the time, like it's like automatically a kick in the pants.
But not that you waited like November 1st. And
Oh, no.
Waited, but like
I didn't wait. It was kind of like, it was more like, well, let's just call it a New Year's resolution. So my resolution for 2015 was, let's run one race every month, and let's just see what happens. So I did 10Ks up to like April, and then every month after that I did a half marathon, and then I ended it in December, and I did a half marathon, and I was like, okay, I'm done. What's next?
they had a sanctioned races for you every month?
Like,
Or did you just do it on your own?
oh no, I did them with them through the group. And then I also, like, if there were other races in LA, I would sign up for those too. So like there's a Hollywood Boulevard half marathon, so I did a half marathon / 10K, so I did that as a 10K. There's a New Year's race that I did the next year, which is like you run through LA and you go around Giant Stadium. So I was like doing them and like going through shoes and, you know, going to the running store and talking about running and doing research about running and like figuring out what gels I should eat and when I should drink water and all that stuff.
So is your performance going up significantly?
Yeah, that was a really good year. That was such a good year because I didn't have any injuries at all, and I was doing a race every month, and I felt really good, and like I created these little like pocket maps to keep in my pocket where like so I wouldn't get lost, and so I would only do like a very specific amount of miles in that time frame. So I did great, you know, I was running and I was getting like medals every month and I had t-shirts and I talked to my husband about it all the time, and like he doesn't run at all, so he doesn't care. But I mean, he's like supportive, but he like doesn't give a crap about running. So that, and then the long-term goal was to do a marathon, and I'd been thinking about it for a couple of years, and because I want to start like challenging myself with like bigger, more involved races that are more physically challenging. So I kept like dancing around this idea of doing the Disney marathon, and like I didn't really know if I could do a marathon because the mileage was like really daunting and the training plan was like crazy. So I made a new friend. Her name is Pauline, and her and I were talking, and she goes to Disney like every year, you know. and she signed up for a half marathon one year. So I thought, like, well, she's going to be there in Florida. I'll sign up for a marathon. So I signed up for the marathon, and like the best way to get yourself into a marathon is to just sign up for it. Just sign up for it. Don't even think about it. Just sign up for it. That's your first step, because after that, then you have your accountability pop in and say, like, hey, you know, you just spent $200 or whatever it was on this race. You should get ready for it, because now you're talking about it. Everyone knows that you're going to do it. So, you know, and I'm very vocal about like my running. I really am, because it helps me stay accountable. It helps me like keep on track. So I signed up for Disney, and I spent, 5 months training. I did the Hal Higdon schedule, which builds up your mileage. And I had no idea like how emotionally draining it would be, because it really like screws with you a lot. You know, you spend the last 6 weeks, like you're doing 38, 42 miles a week. And it just, like you're tired, you are hungry all the time, and you don't know why. And then because you're eating all the time, you feel guilty that you think you're overeating, but you're not, because you're burning so many calories. And then you're exhausted, and your feet hurt, and like there's all this stuff going on in your head. So I was like cranky and hungry, and I would go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night. But I got to the marathon, and my dad surprised me, because my dad was living in Florida at the time. So he surprised me, and he shows up, and I did the marathon, but I couldn't run the last 6 miles because I was having hip problems. Like my right hip really hurt. So I was really hard on myself when I couldn't finish the marathon, because I knew I could do it, but I just couldn't run those last 6 miles. Like I was just beyond like in pain. And I would start running, and then it would hurt like crazy. So I stopped running. I finished the race, but I stopped running, and I think...
You finished the race, you had to stop, you had to withdraw?
No, so I finished the last 6 miles, and I finished the race and everything.
You did finish the last
Yeah, but...
I thought you said you couldn't go further.
Oh no, I just walked the last 6 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you finished.
And I still beat myself up over that, even though it's like stupid, because most people would just love to even walk 26 miles. You know what I mean? But
See, I thought you DNF and then you just withdrew, but you walked it, even though you hit
yeah.
it. That's solid.
I was like, no, I came to Florida. I got a plane ticket. I spent $300 to get into this marathon. I have 4 t-shirts. Like, I am going to finish. I don't care if I have to walk. Like, you guys are going to stay open for this. But I finished, and it wasn't like the big, celebration that I wanted it to be. Like, I wanted to like run across that finish line and be like, yeah! But it just like didn't happen. So, I took a break, and I went to physical therapy, and then we relocated to Austin, and I was like, I'll run the Austin Marathon. How about that? So I signed up for the Austin Marathon, and I went to physical therapy, and I spent a whole year doing that. And I ran short miles, and I built my strength back up, and my hip wasn't hurting anymore, and I wasn't having knee pain or any of that stuff. And I had the right shoes, and I was in training, and I had 6 weeks to go for the Austin Marathon, and I got a new pair of shoes. Because when you're training, you eventually will need to switch out to a new pair of sneakers when you're training. And I got a new pair of sneakers, and I went on a 16-mile run to test them out, and I started having foot pain. And I had foot pain for those 6 weeks leading up to the marathon, and I went to the marathon, and I could not finish the marathon.
How far did you go?
I ran 6 fucking miles, and I had to finish with the half marathon course, and I was so mad at myself.
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah.
Did you finish it?
The half marathon? Not even close to a full marathon. I've done like a 6 mile short full. But I'm just saying, that was my first half marathon.
That's great.
I checked your story. I'm just saying I was there.
No, it was good.
Keep going. So you did the half instead. There was a fork in the road, I remember.
Yeah, the fork.
Some of the marathoners, they changed their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you can do that, like, that's fine. And yeah, like, so the course, the half marathon and the full, you start together, and then you get to a point where it splits off, and if you're in the marathon, you take a left and you go up this ridiculously crazy hill that sucks. Or you go right, and you kind of go up a little hill, and then you go down a little hill, and then you finish. And that's like on Enfield or whatever. I got to that split, and my foot was fucking killing me. So I didn't do the marathon. I finished with the half marathon, and I got that stupid medal, which was a half marathon medal, which I know how ridiculous this sounds, but to me it's like worthless to have that half marathon medal. Yeah, I've done tons of them. Like, I don't give a shit. Half marathons, I'm fine with.
You do it all right. You roll out of bed, it happens.
Sure.
I get
Of course.
it. No, I get it. That wasn't your next goal.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you walk up a pair of stairs every day of your whole life. Who gives a crap that you can climb stairs? Half marathons are like stairs, like.
Right.
Who cares?
It's actually, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, way different to run a marathon than a half.
Yeah.
Way different.
And it's not like, it's not even two half marathons like stacked next to each other. Because your endurance wanes like crazy during a marathon. Like, it's totally different getting ready for a marathon than a half. Like, I think.
And your body, the pressures it puts on your body, doing all that in one shot.
Yeah.
It's good.
And the wall that you hit at mile 20 is real. And it's not like that you're exhausted at mile 20. It's that, like, mentally, you know, you've been doing this for a couple hours. Maybe you just want to sit down on a chair. Maybe you want to eat something that's not like gooey or whatever. Like, you just want to stop. So when I finished the half, I like broke down crying, and I had that like belt buckle half marathon in my hand, and I'm like, that's so worthless. I wanted to throw it in the trash, and I'm like, fuck this. I was so mad. Like, I had all this like food on me. I was gonna eat at like, you know, mile 15 or whatever, still in my pocket. Like, I felt like shit because I couldn't finish it. And I made a friend on the course, super nice guy. He ran the marathon in like 3.5 hours. So by the time I finished the half marathon, he finished the full marathon, and he was like, hey, Ange, like, how you doing? You all right? And I was like, so.
Did he for a second think you finished the marathon at the same time as
I never ever. I don't even know why he thought like I ran the full marathon. Did he think I was fast? Like, I don't know.
But did he think that?
He might have. I don't know. He runs like 6.5 minute miles. Like, he's super fast. But so the thing was, like, when I went to packet pickup for the full marathon, I immediately signed up for the one in 2018, which was like the next marathon, because I knew like if I wasn't going to finish in 2017, I was going to finish in 2018. But I knew like I had to go through a whole another round of physical therapy and recovery again. So this is like the second round this time. And what I did differently this time, and I'm 6 weeks away. I'm at that point where I just had my 16-mile run this past weekend, and the last time I did a 16-mile run, I hurt my foot, right? So I had it this past weekend, and I had a little bit of pain, but not too much. So what I did differently this time was come here, and I did CrossFit. And I've been doing CrossFit since July, because it's not just about physical therapy or stretching or rolling, whatever, for running. It's also about like getting your core strong, and it's helped me a lot. Like, when I first came in here, I was doing the morning sessions, and I was afraid to squat because I was afraid my knee would hurt. And it wasn't even like overhead squats I was afraid of. It was just like squatting at all. Like, I was so afraid I would do them like really slow and crouch down and come back up really fast. And I wouldn't even go down all the way. But it turned out really well, and I'm still trying to do pull-ups. Like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do pull-ups. And burpees always kick my ass, like always. But I feel like I've come a lot further in my running with CrossFit than I have with anything else that I've done. And I also want to say that I did not start running until I was like 32, I'm 36 now. I didn't start running until I was like 32, maybe 33. And like, there is no such thing as like being too old to work out or being too old to run or do CrossFit or like join a swim league or do a triathlon. Like, there are people in their 90s who do that stuff, and they're really freaking great at it. Like, there's people in their 40s who have done like 6 Ironmans. So like, if that guy can do it, like anyone can do it. If I can run and I can do like a mile under like 12 minutes, for example, anyone can do it. And I like telling people that because I feel like people don't really know that. You know, they look at like pictures of really fast runners and they say, oh, I can't do that. Like, that guy is really fast. Look how skinny he is. Like, I'll never be that way. But, you know, all I ever tell people is like, yes, you can run. It doesn't matter how old you are. All that matters is that you finish. Like that John Bingham book that I read. All that matters is that you get across the finish line. And that's still true. Like, I really feel it now. And that's how I feel like, you know, ever since I did a marathon and I finished the marathon, I crossed that finish line, I could do a triathlon, like I could do the Jack's triathlon in Austin. Like, sure, of course I can. It's just about like the time commitment and the training as opposed to like if I can do it or not. Like, I know I can do it. So, yeah.
So coming up in 6 weeks, is it February? The Austin there?
Yeah, February 19th.
February 19th.
Yeah.
It's
And
going to be the first time that you're going to go full on, no injuries.
Yeah.
Finish.
Yeah, I'm gonna run the shit out of that fucking thing. I swear to God, I'm gonna get that medal, man. I'm gonna come back here on Monday and I'm gonna show you guys that medal. I'm gonna wear it all day because it's gonna happen.
I want to see it.
It's gonna happen. I'm gonna do it.
So I usually ask what advice you have. I think you just gave it.
Oh yeah. Oh, for like people wanting to get fitness. Ooh.
Just your life advice about your own life. What you would tell other people just based on your experiences. Not that you have to be a guru or anything, but just your own personal experience about life,
Life?
physical fitness.
Yeah, I would say
The whole
that.
about it, not just
What?
not just the fitness portion. Life, getting through life. You know, your life with your father, and your brother, finding your own identity, all that stuff. If you want to wrap that.
Oh wow, I'll just wrap it into one neat little package.
All those things. And about how you are now, and how you feel now, what you think people should concentrate on in their life.
I think that I think a lot of people depend on their lives up until the current moment to define who they are, and they let it anchor them into who they are in the future. You know, if you're always focusing on like who you were up until that very moment, then you're never going to be someone different. You're never going to live up to your potential. Like if you hate your body shape, or you hate like a relationship that you're in, and you've been in that relationship, or you've been that body weight for, you know, your whole life, like you don't have to be that person for the rest of your life. You don't. Like, you can be whoever you want to be. And it just shouldn't anchor you. Like, the person that I was when I was a kid, like, it's, you know, it's still part of me. Like, I'm still, like that's who I was, but I'm not that kid anymore. Like, I'm not, you know? Like, I'm not like a lonely little fat kid, you know? And I'm sure we all have like lonely little fat kids in us. But it's not who I am now, and it's not who I want to be in the future.